right, welcome back everyone. The concluding afternoon of the next generation PDF session track. My name is Matt Kuznicki, and I'll be talking about the best practices in creating next generation PDFs. I will start by acknowledging perhaps a bit of irony in this topic. You might ask, how can there be best practices creating files in a format that we're still working on? Now, the answer to that is that while we don't have a technical specification finalized, while we still have many more discussions to go, we do have guiding principles, guiding strategies and goals that we can talk about in the context of best practices. So best practices, these fall into several different categories I'm going to talk about. I'm going to cover some material that other speakers have covered over the past day and a half. Forgive me, please. But I want to talk about best practices in the context of document adaptability for different user needs. Not just assistive technology, not just HTML presentation, but user needs generally. I want to talk about one of the key value propositions of PDF, and that is reliable document behavior and best practices in preserving reliable behavior for next generation PDF where presentations may change. I'll talk about specifically accessibility and content repurposing. I'll talk a bit about quality verification. One of the key things for any document really is knowing that you have the right document in the right place at the right time. And then since, my speaking coach always told me to tell people what I'm going to tell them, and then tell it, and then say that I told them, well, I will close with some, I won't call them I told you so's, because my coach would laugh at me, but we'll call them closing thoughts. So, a quick note, a quick introduction. I am the CTO of Datalogics, as well as the chairman of the PDF Association. I'm a member of the technical working group that's working on next generation PDF. These slides, these best practices, these opinions, these represent first and foremost my own opinions. I do not represent these as the opinions of anyone other than me. I hope that you will find at the end of this presentation that you agree with a lot of these best practices and a lot of my opinions, but there may very well be different viewpoints on this matter. That's okay. My opinions come from my experiences and what I've heard from users, from PDF Association members, and from PDF developers, their experiences since I've started working with PDF. Your experiences may be different. They may inform you differently. And I welcome questions. I welcome dialogue. I welcome counterpoints. I also offer fairly general best practices that I intend for a broad audience. Some of us have specific workflows, specific restricted audiences or installations. Those may warrant different considerations, different best practices, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with tailoring your best practices to your specific audience. So today's user expectations. The PDF in its quarter century, plus or minus, has seen a lot of different users, definitely seen a lot of different documents, and it has seen many changes in what users expect information to be. 25 years ago, information came in the form of documents, came in the form of Printed sheets of paper, typically letter A4 size, but not always, came in the form of a screen display on a monitor connected to a computer, and that monitor in size and in form was not that different from a piece of paper. The only difference was that the resolution was much worse, and if you stared at it in the dark, it gave you headaches after a while. And I had those lines going across that you could see it roll down, and it was perhaps a poor analog to paper. But we could use the same paradigms, the same ways of thinking, and we could shape as document creators and as software developers expectations into that same track. We could introduce an audience that was used to paper and sheets of paper to electronic documents without having to also introduce them to new form factors. Fast forward a quarter century, now we're all used to displays that vary in size dramatically, that vary in capabilities dramatically. We're used to displays that are context sensitive, that can change their presentation through software based on what we are doing, based on requests we have made, based on things going on around us. Users, they expect information and its display to adapt to their surroundings. Reflow, for example, is an adaptation to a limited screen size. Read aloud is an adaptation to having no screen at all. Screen reader compatibility is an adaptation to having low vision or no vision at all. Users expect these adaptations. They expect information to be presented in an adaptive format. They expect to be able to change the style of how information is laid out visually. If they wish to modify text size, text font, they may wish to modify the text, text decoration. Well, they expect content and information, even when its presentation adapts, to be reliably extractable and to come out into other programs, into cut and paste workflows, into save as workflows. They expect it to come out in the same way that they see it on screen. Now, what's interesting is that the definition of the same way has changed over time. We've perhaps been conditioned to think of the same way as appears exactly the same, whereas today's users have been bringing an expectation that information, it is the same information, but the conveyance may not be exactly the same. Across many different devices, in many different circumstances, many different scenarios, we get a constant stream of information thrown at us. And information that doesn't adapt its presentation is information that is forgotten, ignored, or perhaps worst of all, information that is misunderstood. But PDF, we don't want to lose the value proposition of PDF. We don't want to lose the ability to have a definitive author intent of how information is presented. What we do want to have is the ability to also have adaptable presentation for different screens, for different circumstances, for different readers. When I say different readers, this is not just different viewing programs, but different people. Imagine information that can present itself differently based on your reading level ability, based on your grasp, your fluency in a specific language. Adaptation to readers is a huge potential field to explore for next generation PDF. This adaptability, this really is the most exciting thing to me that next generation PDF will bring. And this adaptability, this ability to change and alter presentation is what forms the foundation of PDF, of next generation PDF, being able to meet both today's user needs and tomorrow's user needs that we may not have even conceived of just yet. But next generation PDF should be able to meet future user needs, not just the ones we can think of today. The great concept, great power next generation PDF brings us. It brings us great responsibility as well. With power, you must have restraint. Adaptable content is great, but it should be an alternative view of the same document information. Adaptable content does not mean entirely different information based on how you access a document. Every user should be able, in all circumstances, to access all of the information that is present in a PDF file. Of course, this may be subject to your specific viewing environment, but to the best extent possible, we should not be hiding information in the name of making things easy on users. Or if we hide information, we should allow access to the underlying information. We should allow access to everything. The needs of all users when we create next generation of PDF need to be considered. We don't want to create a next generation of PDF that gives a superlative experience to sighted users and leaves low vision users behind. Now, thankfully, accessibility is key on the minds of many who are working on next generation PDF. But as we move from a technical standard in a file format into implementations, it is incumbent upon implementers to remember the needs of the entire user community. And fundamentally, next generation PDF, PDF 2.0, PDF generally, no matter what version, PDF users rely upon reliable PDF document behavior. They should get no surprises when opening PDFs. They should get no surprises when trying to work with PDFs. Now, what does that mean? Well, next generation PDF should not ever damage the value proposition or break the expectations that users have of PDF today. Or let me elaborate, it should not break the positive expectations that users have of PDF today. Next generation PDF should be created so that it can always be usefully displayed, usefully printed, usefully shared with others, and content in that PDF, information in that next generation PDF, being able to reliably be referred to. I should be able to tell somebody that they should be able to see a certain piece of information with confidence that they can see it, no matter what viewer they're using, no matter when they're viewing this next generation PDF. Documents, next generation PDF files should make it very clear to users how and when their presentation might change. Again, no surprises. Alternate presentations, better presentations for the viewing environment, but that goes hand in hand with no surprises. And that includes not changing information or changing content over time. PDF is a reliable long-term document information format. We must not break that in the name of chasing responsiveness and doodads and whatever today's buzzword is now or 10 years into the future. We must remember that users will rely on next generation PDF to maintain information integrity over the long term. So as implementers, what does that mean? How do we keep the promise of PDF? Well, I can tell you what we shouldn't do. Authors, tools, should not create PDFs that just ask for a specific viewer. Compatibility is paramount. A next generation PDF that is beholden to very specific viewing circumstances, that doesn't uphold the promise of a portable document format. PDFs that are useful only on the second Tuesday of the month, or only on an iPhone, or only when printed, that require specific circumstances, break the PDF brand promise. They're not portable. You cannot convey information with them reliably. PDFs where what you see is not what you get when you export information breaks user expectations. Next generation PDFs that assume interactive capabilities from a viewer, stay away from those. Certainly, next generation PDF that works with interactive viewers and that presents interactive possibilities from users, this is a good thing. This is a user expectation. But to require interactivity in order to be useful at all really breaks the promise that we have made to our users over the years. And again, presentations that change over time without making this clear to users, that's not reliable information presentation. That's not a portable document or information format. So next generation, yep, you've heard that next generation PDF is based on PDF 2.0, based on tag PDF. This builds into next generation PDFs the semantic representation of document information. I think this is a great thing. It'll also build in representation of content styling, separate from content semantics. This is also a great thing. This forms the foundation of being able to change presentation of a next generation PDF. It forms the foundation of allowing reliable transcoding into HTML, into other formats, other structured formats as well. It makes it easy to allow different viewing systems to present different views of information. This is a file format that allows all of this, though. Authors will need to take advantage of these capabilities to have next generation PDFs that offer an optimal experience. Successful next generation PDF files will take advantage of all of these. They will bring all of this information into next generation PDF files at the time they are created, and not as an afterthought, not as remediated documents, not as a bolt-on somewhere down the line in the process. So tag PDF, PDF 2.0 semantic representation, there's a gotcha. And that is that we need to avoid adhering to these rules, but ignoring the spirit behind them. Bringing poorly tagged next generation PDF. This will not be a good experience. This will be brittle. This will cause viewers to give, I don't want to say incorrect results. I don't want to say an author ever has ill intent, but let's just say results that may not match user expectations. Users naturally will perceive this negatively. These will not be successful next generation PDF documents. Poorly structured content, it will be reliable, it just will not be reliably good. It will be at best reliably mediocre. We will, as a file format and as presented, it will reliably be presented only as well as the information that got put in by the author into that next generation PDF file. Navigation aids, very important for next generation PDF. I know PDF 2.0 has lost quite a few pages along the way. We're down to 970 pages, but I really don't want to think about navigating that without any sort of sectioning or chaptering or bookmarks or navigation links or other affordances. Can you imagine trying to read 970 PDF pages on your iPhone? It might take you a while. I think the only worse experience might be if you try to use the read aloud for that. That'll put you to sleep pretty quick, but so it may have a purpose, but it's not going to be what our users expect it to be. Alternate presentations for content. You've heard a lot about HTML and some of the capabilities that as an alternate presentation format brings. But next generation PDF as a concept is not necessarily limited to that. However, asking to have alternate content generated, as document authors, you need to be very careful about what format you might request. Assume that viewers may have a very limited toolbox of formats that they can convert to, that they can represent alternates as. If you go outside this toolbox, you can expect perhaps content to go missing or to be misrepresented. Or perhaps if you're lucky, you might just get content that gets rasterized. Content that may not be easily representable in an alternate form. Next generation PDF that uses this, that relies perhaps on a viewer to be able to rasterize this as an alternate presentation, will lose potentially a lot of the benefits of next generation PDF. Will lose reflow capability, will lose indexability, will lose screen reader compatibility. So let's, as authors, as a best practice, make adaptability, make the ability to generate alternative presentations as easy as possible for next generation PDF processors. What does that mean? Well, that means avoiding excessive requests for alternate content. Every time we're going to transcode or change the format of an alternate or generate an alternate, this will take processing power. This will take time. This will take very precious time. I believe I've heard that users, after 0.4 of a second, 400 milliseconds, they expect their information to be displayed. They start to wonder what's going on if they don't get a display within 4/10 of a second. Typically within a second, your user will go on to something else, or your program, your viewing program may very well decide that you have consumed enough processor and it will just cut your display off. So we want to use alternates as they make sense, but we want to be cognizant that they come with a cost. Open Web Platform, the OWP is a great toolbox to think about when requesting alternative assets. PDF features that can't be represented in these formats. Be very careful in how you use them in next generation PDF files. And then to aid navigation, be sure to divide up your next generation PDF files into content that has natural reading breaks, that allows your user to easily access the content that they're looking for and to easily come back to the information that they're looking for, that they remember having seen before. Maybe last week when they were reading at their desktop. Now this week they remember seeing something and they want to pull out their phone and get back to where they were. Successful next generation PDF files will be authored in a way to make that cross-device, cross-time, cross-space navigation as easy, as quick, and as easy as possible. There's no easier term than easy, so I'll just use it twice. Now, I talk about us as authors a lot, and I really want to emphasize the point that best practices for next generation PDF documents really start at the beginning. They start with document authors, and they start with authors who use their tools in the best and optimal manners that they can to bring structure to their documents. Authors who use proper markup and semantics for content. Taking a selection of text in Microsoft Word and making it bold does not make a heading. Making it italic does not make it a subheading. I know a lot of users are somewhat lax or somewhat relaxed in how they semantically tag and mark up their information. I see a great market in the future for tools and guidance and ways in popular programs that allow authors to more easily accurately represent the semantics of their information. Don't assume an interactive experience with your document. Sometimes you may have one, sometimes you may not. You want to author documents that work and work well in both scenarios. Don't assume that your audience is reading your document. Your audience may very well be playing the PDF standard through their car stereo. I don't know why they want to fall asleep that way. Perhaps the self-driving car has finally perfected itself. But if they do, they're not going to be reading your document. They'll be consuming your information. They'll just be doing it through listening to it. So we don't want to assume that our users are always coming to us from a visual point of view. And we don't want to assume our users even have eyeballs. We don't want to assume all of our audience are even human beings. Business intelligence workflows, indexing, artificial intelligence, natural language processing, summarization engines, Bayesian inference techniques, all sorts of non-human consumers of your information form a huge and growing and ever more important segment of your document audience. Best practice next generation PDF files will bear in mind the needs of all of these audiences, all of the different ways that your information may be consumed. So next generation PDF, it's very exciting. It's going to do a lot to bring PDF to meet new user expectations and to meet the expectations of new users. It does this through facilitating content adaptability, but next generation PDF cannot do everything. Next generation PDF cannot make up for poorly authored documents. As they say, garbage in, garbage out. If you're going to bring a bag of trash to next generation PDF, you will get nothing more than a new and bright and shiny garbage can. You'll still pull garbage out the other end. So I haven't said too much that's specific about next generation PDF here, have I? Because really, these are best practices for PDF as it exists today. Most of what I've talked about is not going to be specific to any envisioning or any technical specification that is the next generation of PDF. Most of these are best practices today to indicate the meaning of your content, not just visually, but also semantically through the use of tag PDF, to design with a broad audience in mind, but also designing optimally for the audience that you know you're going to encounter both now and the audiences that you're going to encounter in the future. And, well, I mean, none of this is really PDF specific either, is it? These are really just best practices in document creation as it stands. What next generation PDF will do is to highlight the necessity for using and coming closer to these best practices in document creation in order to allow the presentation of PDFs to be as seamless, as optimal, as exciting, as fresh, and as relevant to as many audiences as possible. Which means that you need to QA for as many audiences as possible. You can't get away in the next generation PDF world with just looking at your document on screen and saying that's a day. If you have cues to change your presentation based on screen orientation, screen size, you better proof that. You better check it on those screens. If you have behavior that changes based on a view or a print or read aloud extraction workflow, you better QA all of these workflows. You better make sure all of these audiences' needs are going to be met. And you want to at the same time verify and make sure that the base level view, the ground truth PDF that underlies your next generation PDF file is a complete and useful view for your audience. So in closing, because if I can tell you something I told you at the beginning, I told you I would tell you at the beginning what I was going to tell you after I told you it. So here's where I tell you what I told you that I was going to tell you. Don't say I told you so, though. So next generation PDF brings a wide variety of benefits for reliable and interchangeable documents to a world where user expectations have changed so dramatically over the past quarter century. And really, where we can expect user needs and expectations to continue to change throughout the life of next generation of PDF and of users and generations to come. But we know some things will remain true. Content reliability is still key to PDF users. Sharing documents is still vital between users. Adapting presentations does not mean leaving classes of users out in the cold and unable to access your information. And all of this begins ideally at the start when you author your next generation PDF. So, compatibility-wise, next generation PDF, it will live in a world where we have next generation PDF viewers, as well as viewers that may not be able to understand next generation PDF, as well as viewers and processors that may choose to reinterpret next generation PDF into something else entirely. How can we ensure compatibility today and tomorrow? Well, I'll give you some don'ts. I know I'm supposed to end positively, but I believe in not always ending positively, so I'll end with a bunch of worst practices. Don't create PDFs where your ground truth is simply a notification to your user that they cannot participate, that their viewer is not supported. Don't create next generation PDFs where only your alternative presentations have useful information presentation. Don't create next generation PDFs that are only good at certain times, in certain places, underwater or at the grocery store or in the hands of people whose names start with F. Don't create PDFs where you have to have specific circumstances to be usable at all. And don't create PDFs that are only useful in next generation PDF viewers. Yes, we want next generation PDF to be adopted as widely, as quickly, and as enthusiastically as possible. We will not ever hope to achieve that if we leave everybody else behind. We want next generation PDF to present the best possible information experience. But we want to make sure that we give a good and useful experience to everybody that comes to a next generation PDF file, even if their tools that they have available may not be ready to make the journey with them. With that, I thank you. I have a couple minutes for questions if anybody has any. Okay, yes?
My clients are in the legal world, and I'm wondering, is this the next logical step for PDF generically, or is this a fork? It feels more like a fork to me. Serving the business community, I'm just sitting here wondering, how can I turn all of that stuff off? Because if somebody buys your company for $500 million, you don't want the purchase agreement to change. You don't want Adobe's copy to be an Arial and yours to be an LA. That will change real problems somewhere along the line. I know.
So the question was whether these capabilities represent kind of a fork to PDF and whether they can be turned off. And PDF 2.0 will remain, PDF 1.7 will remain. We don't feel next generation PDF is a fork of PDF. We don't see it as a separate or a different thing. We see it as an evolution of PDF to meet different user expectations. Now, there will always be that ground truth representation that you can get to, that you can use. If you need to refer to page 3 of your contract or of your purchase order. That said, not every tool is built to solve every problem. For your specific circumstances, it may be that PDF 2.0 itself is the choice that works best for that. And that's okay. And I believe Leonard may offer a different viewpoint here.
No, not a different one at all. It's a slightly extended one. I can tell you, as I mentioned yesterday, these are one of the lots of users, which include lawyers and government agencies. What we heard is actually they like this idea because it encompasses all of the things they love about PDF. You get the static rendering, the pages, all the things that Matt talked about. But when they're on the train or on the plane and all they've got is their phone, and they can say, show this to me in a view that makes it work on my phone, that's great. Think about, and you have to think about this, that it's not that we're changing the, and this is very important, it's not that we're changing the document of record. It's not a word of record, but it's a phrase that people also.
That's what I'm getting at.
Well, and the document of record doesn't change. The PDF is the PDF is the PDF. It's tagged, it's semantically richer, but it is a PDF 2.0. It's no different than something I can produce today. The difference, or tomorrow, in series. The point is that we're going to get viewers to think about how to take those semantics and present them in different ways. So it doesn't change the core of the document. Your $50,000 or $500,000, whatever it is, contract is still that contract. But now I can view the terms of that contract on my phone in an easier manner. Or I can have it properly indexed, go back to Bruno and other presentations today. Now when I put it into my SharePoint system or my Documento, it's properly indexed, and I can actually say, show me all contracts that I executed greater than $50,000, which I can't do today because the semantics of the cost of the contract isn't in there, just X string 50,000, if even that. And so it's not about changing that document of record, it's about enhancing ways in which we can better consume. We humans and we machines, as Matt said, that content. Does that help? Maybe.
It sounds complicated.
No one's arguing that. And I will say, if I may, that's why we are taking our time and we are not rushing this out, because it is a very different way of thinking about PDF than we've all thought about it for 25 years. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But we need to make sure that you and everyone else in the world are comfortable with that. And so it will be a progressive process. Absolutely.
Great question. I apologize, I'm out of time for questions, but thank you, everybody.